Hey guys, and welcome back to another flashlight review. Today I'm going to be looking at a special light, and this is the first of its kind that I'm reviewing, a forensic light. This is the Nextorch P56, and this one is definitely one of the more unique lights that I own. It feels more like a specialist tool than just a flashlight. And one of the things I really like about Nextorch is that they just apply that same attention to detail to all of their flashlights, and the P56 is certainly no different. So this P56 flashlight is marketed as a professional forensic flashlight. So it has this rotating switch that allows you to select from 6 different alternative light sources. So when I say alternative light sources, basically, anything other than white light. But I'll go through that in more detail later. Let's have a look at what you get in the box. So this here is the box that it comes in. You can see it here in the front, and you can pause the video here and check out all the different light options that are available. You basically have white, UV, blue, green, red, infrared, and the different applications. So some examples are like detecting fingerprints, drag marks, bruising, sweat, detecting hair, that kind of thing. So let's have a look inside the box and you can see what you actually get. So this is what you get in the box. Apart from the P56 itself, you do get a nice little 18650 cell here. It's 2600 milliamp hours, so definitely not on the larger capacity side, but this is a protected cell, comes with the flashlight, and basically just slots in. You charge it from the back there. So that's the light itself. You have a power adapter that just takes a normal USB-A connector out the back. If you live in another country, you might have to get a power adapter, just a converter out the front. Really interestingly, Nextorch have also included a car charger. So you can see here that just connects on to the actual corded charger. I'll take it out so you can have a quick look at it. But basically, it has a USB port, USB-A connector on one side, and the other side here is a proprietary little charging cable that connects on to the back of the flashlight right there. Here are a few accessories that you don't get with your usual flashlights. And right at the bottom here, I have some red goggles, okay? And basically, these are used to block out any wavelengths below 610 nanometers, and that's just to allow the resulting fluorescence to be seen. These are meant to be used with the green and the blue light options. Next up, we've got some orange goggles here, and these block wavelengths below 570 nanometers, and they're generally used to look for fingerprints. You can use this with the UV, blue, or green light. Finally, you get some of these yellow goggles here at the end, and these block any wavelengths below 500 nanometers and basically allows for that fluorescence to be seen a bit more easily. And normally, again, it's just used for finding fingerprints, and it's recommended that they're used with the UV, blue, and green spectrums again. Okay, so I have the Nextorch P56 here to the right, and I just wanted to compare it to some of my other full-sized Nextorch flashlights, and you can see here it's basically around the same size, just a little bit longer than the other flashlights. Even if you look at the tactical range here, the TA30C Max or the T10L here, there's just a little bit more room here up the top to fit that aspheric lens, and also for that mechanism in there that allows you to change LEDs from the 6 different light sources in there. Here is a little close-up of the Nextorch P56, and you can see you've got that excellent Nextorch quality machining. You always see this from Nextorch. There's no imperfections or sharp edges. Very low-key design, which I like. And you see these little cutouts here on the head, tiny little cutouts, simple ones there on the bezel, simple ones here on the side of the head where this switch is as well. There's also a little bit of detailing here on the battery tube and the tail cap. No knurling though, as you can see. And one of the things I really love about Nextorch flashlights is just their anodizing. It's probably the best in the business And then comparing it to maybe something like Army Taker Nextorch for me have some of the best anodizing. Got this matte black finish, and it's extremely tough when compared to my other lights, especially the budget lights in my collection. And I went out the other day, did some beam shots, and some of the lights came loose from the container I was carrying them around in, and they were just knocking around in my backpack. I only found out when I got home. And, you know, looking at the P56, it was one of the few lights that didn't get scratched up. And yeah, the anodizing, very grippy, even though, as I said before, there's no knurling here on the battery tube. So the light is operated by this tail switch here, and also this side switch, which is a rotating side switch, okay, omnidirectional as well. I do find that the side switch is quite firm in order to prevent accidental mode switching when you're carrying the flashlight around. The tail switch is a momentary tactical tail switch, the same one I believe that's found in the TA41, so half press for momentary, full press to activate the flashlight. And you can see here as well, you have a nice little clip on the side, rigid, really quite a rigid clip. And the great thing about this clip as well is that the attachment point is actually underneath the tail cap. So there's no chance that I'm going to be able to pull this thing out of position. It's pretty much going to stay in place right there. And I think that's a really good choice from Nextorch, having that secondary mechanical seal, I suppose. So the P56 takes an 18.650 cell, as I mentioned before, has onboard charging, but you do have to use that proprietary cable that comes with the light. And the good news is it can also take CR123 cells. So I will just run through the different LEDs that come with this light, okay, and their specifications. Nextorch don't mention the brand of these LEDs, but they do mention some specifications. So basically what wavelength they are. So if we look at this one here, this is the UV light, so 365 nanometers. This one here is infrared, 850 nanometers. Okay. Up next, we've got the blue, 450 nanometers, red, 630 nanometers, green, 525 nanometers, and then we just got a normal white LED, and again, cycling back to UV, as you see. So really like that Nextorch have included a recessed bezel as well, just helps to protect that glass lens and all the hardware inside. Very basic bezel, no crenulation, anything like that. So it's going to be easy to get this past a security checkpoint. Okay, so I'm going to just show you the UI, and I've demonstrated it slightly, but I'll show you it in full detail now. So basically this tail switch here, you can half press it to access the mode, the main sort of high mode. Okay, if you full press the light, you get constant on. Okay, now here's something that I don't know why they've included, but if you double press it, okay, you can get a sort of strobe mode as well, emergency strobe mode. Not sure when you'd actually use that, but generally how I use it is you turn on the light. Say I've got it on red. Now, once the light is on, you can press that button at the back halfway to cycle between high and low. And I find this is really helpful because sometimes you don't need it to be really that bright. Okay, especially if you're viewing an object up close, the lower setting is more than enough. It's going to also preserve some battery life as well. So, and basically once the light is on, all you do is just rotate this switch here on the top to go through the different modes. So what we're going to do now, we are going to go through some videos, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the potential uses for each of these lights in forensic settings, and even just settings that you might use on a general basis as well, like identifying banknotes and what have you. So let's take a look at what this light is capable of. Okay, so I have a few books here, and I just want to demonstrate what they look like under UV light. So the books here to the right, this one's 1940s sort of book. This is a 1960s book. The one to the left, I believe it was from 2010 onwards. So pretty new book, and you'll find that with these newer books, they have whiteners in there as well that do fluoresce under UV light. I've also got a $2 note from Singapore, and this also has some security markings, UV security markings on them as well. So let's have a look at how they all appear under the UV light. Okay, so here is the P56 on the UV mode, and you can see with the note already, there's like the two sort of symbol there, another symbol directly underneath there that doesn't show up. Also some numbers here on the right hand side that don't show up under normal light. Look on the other side. Really much besides the center, which has kind of this slightly fluorescent coloring in the center. There is some security markers there on the back, so mainly just here on the front. Now, if we compare the two books, well, these bunch of books anyway, you can see the book to the left, just hold the light up a little bit higher, the book to the left, the paper fluoresces a lot more compared to this book here to the right and the book here to the bottom. Interestingly, the front of this book has some kind of, I don't know what it is, some type of new binding. I think they had fixed, looks like they have fixed this book, maybe used a different kind of binding than the front, so that kind of looks a little bit more, it fluoresces just the same as the book to the left, okay? But the actual pages itself, if you look at the photographs, okay, this is also that sort of shiny paper. It doesn't have any of these whiteners added, so you can tell that this is an old book, not a reprint. Okay, and same with this one here on the bottom, just with the normal pages as well. And you get this same sort of effect actually with newer books that are made out of this kind of generic paper that you get with most sort of storybooks. But I think the main tell is, yeah, these sort of pages in the center that have, yeah, kind of this shiny surface. Okay, there's no fluorescing. So here I have a little specimen of a skull, and basically we're going to look at it underneath the blue light and see if we can reveal anything in the bone structure, anything that fluoresces. So let's turn off the white light and have a look. Okay, so this is the skull under the P56 450 nanometer blue light. But apart from this blue color that you see just covering the skull, there's really nothing fluorescing. But when we use these red colored glasses, this is where we see something a little different. So what I've done, I've now put the glasses lens directly under the camera lens, and you can see with the blue light, the lens filters out pretty much all of the blue light, leaving the remaining wavelengths to fluoresce. So you can see underneath the skull, there are these interesting parts that fluoresce, and I was wondering what they were, but a little closer up, I had a look afterwards, and it sort of looks like there's some glue or just some cleaning residue left over on the skull itself. And I thought there would have been maybe parts of the bone or, you know, calcification or something like that, but it does look like there could be some residues that are left over, because I've gone and rubbed off some of that residue and it does move around. But this isn't really visible just through normal light. You can see some of the residue, but it doesn't show up as well as it does under the 450 nanometer with the red goggles. So here's another example of a shell and a couple of rocks. This is an ammonite, fossilized ammonite on the left, and this is just under the blue light, 450 nanometers again, and you can see there's not really much going on. It just looks blue. Okay, now if I add on these goggles again to the camera lens, have a look what happens. Okay, so now I've added on the red goggles to the camera lens so that you can see what I see when I've got the goggles on, and really it's quite interesting. You've got the ammonite, and you can see the fluorescing areas here. Front, the back could be just due to the presence of a certain mineral in there. You've got this one as well, which is quite interesting. Little hints of orange, kind of warmer parts on the edge of the rock. That's about it, but just around the edges there, you can see a little bit of orangey, lighter fluorescing area. And this shell, see on the inside, also a fluorescing area in the center. Okay, so here is something quite interesting. I found that with nails and skin, they also fluoresce under this blue light when you're using the red goggles. So as you can see, nails have kind of orangey, take on this orangey color. Okay, once you filter out all the blue wavelengths, that's what's left over. It's pretty much impossible to see with the naked eye without the red goggles. But if you even just look at my nails themselves, okay, they fluoresce too. Okay, that's my nail there. And it also seems to pick up on dead skin. So you can see here just on my hands here, I do a bit of weightlifting. So you can see there is a bit of dead skin and calluses just on the back of my hand. It's quite interesting and maybe useful as well if you're trying to detect any bits of dead skin or nails. I thought maybe it could have been due to the keratin content, so I did try some of my own hair, and so I took out a few of my hairs just to see if that would fluoresce as well, and it doesn't seem to be the case. So, you know, maybe different types of hair could fluoresce, but my hair certainly doesn't fluoresce. Theory could be just due to the maybe bacterial reaction to some of the bacteria just leaving their waste compounds and underneath the nails or the dead skin, perhaps, that's causing this fluorescence. So here's a little test with the infrared 850 nanometer mode on the P56, and I've just come up with a few test lines here. Okay, so in the top one, I've actually used a combination of ballpoint pen and liquid ink, two types of liquid ink for this second one. Ballpoint and liquid ink here, and what I've done here is that I've used ballpoint pen below and gone over the top with liquid ink. So one of the interesting things about IR light is that it's able to see through certain materials and identify different densities. So let's turn off the main light and let's have a look. So here is that same sheet of paper. Okay, I'm just using my phone camera because it seems to be much more sensitive to infrared light, and I've got the P56 here, and you can see with this top number there, okay, the difference between the ballpoint pen and the liquid ink. Okay, the liquid ink is just showing up as black, the ballpoint just lightens completely, so you can see that's been tampered with. This one here, I've used two different types of liquid ink. Doesn't seem to be any difference there in the lightness of the different numbers, though I added an extra 2 in the front. Same thing here for this third example. I've added in a 2 there, but the $sign and the 5,000 were done in ballpoint. So these would be good examples if you looking to identify fraudulent checks, documentation. Now here's something really interesting. These two bottom ones I've just scribbled over the top with ballpoint ink, so you really just cannot see anything, and I've used normal ink below. And look at that, I mean, that's clear as anything. You can see there I've got like a message, secret message that just says message, and also underneath here just a little smiley face. Okay, so here's something interesting with infrared light as well. I'm just using my leg here as an example, but you can see the vein patterns quite clearly under infrared light. Now, I don't have a proper infrared camera, but even with just using my phone on the night mode, it's able to pick up those vein patterns on my leg. And vein patterns, from what I read, are just as identifiable and unique as fingerprints. So I thought that was a really interesting little discovery. But again, I mean, the effect is, you're only just able to see it here. You're going to need a proper infrared camera to capture this. And here's another example here just of my arm and the vein pattern here on my arm. And I read an interesting case where a perpetrator's veins, their individual veins that were captured on infrared camera, were compared to ones afterwards when they were asked to have them photographed, and was actually prosecuted on the basis of that, just due to how unique people's vein patterns are. And it was actually proven in that particular case to be as individual as fingerprints. I don't really see them so well on certain parts of my skin. So it's more the lighter parts of my skin. The veins seem to show through. On this side where I've got a bit of a tan, it's kind of more difficult to see them. Okay. Don't think you can really see the little capillaries and veins and stuff on my fingers. So I'm using the P56 now, just on the green mode, so 525 nanometers. And what I really find with the green mode is that it just seems to be very sensitive to picking up keratinization. So any kind of darker spots on the skin, it could be a pore, it could be just a new scar or something like that. As you can see here, these are actually just some pores, some sort of darker pores here on my skin, and they show up really, really easily. Definitely not a flattering kind of look at all. You can see they show up on the side of my arms. Now, another very interesting thing I found, and it is difficult to show this on camera, but I do find that the green light is really good at picking up fingerprints without any additional goggles or aids, I guess, powders and stuff like that. So you can see here, I mean, it is a little bit tricky again to see underneath, directly underneath the camera, but yeah, got a print there. Yep. And just on the lens, the bottom right hand corner, the lens there as well. It really just seems to reveal kind of oily areas as well. See, there's oils on your fingers. Okay. But surprisingly easy to see these fingerprints, identify them without any additional chemicals or what have you. Just got my phone here and same sort of deal. Added a bunch of fingerprints onto the front of it. And if I compare it and we sort of use some other lights, you know, the red works as well. Blue, not as much. Okay. But if we just compare it to, say, the white light, okay, I don't find the white light to be as effective as the green. Okay. So if we compare them, for some reason, the green just really seems to emphasize those prints, especially if we look in the center. They appear brighter, easier to see, and especially with the naked eye as well, because our eyes are more sensitive to the green wavelength. And to see those prints a lot more easily with the green. Red, for some reason, shows up quite well under camera, but with the naked eye, I really can't make out much of those prints at all. Blue. Similar sort of story here. Looks decent under the camera, but a little bit tricky for me to see it with the naked eye. Okay, so this here is a little test with the P56, and you can see I'm just using the white light mode here at the moment. Okay, you can see a little bit of bruising on the skin, and we're going to switch over to some other modes. So this is green. And one thing I find about the green mode is that you can really see, really emphasizes the pores and maybe some pigmentation on the skin. But strangely enough, it emphasizes the pores. And you can see a little bit of the bruising come through. I'd say probably a bit more than the white light if you compare. Tiny bit more. Difficult to see on camera. We've got red, which really just yeah, can't really see too much, but it does allow you to see the veins, arteries through the skin, okay? But probably the most revealing light would be the blue. So a little bit difficult here to see on camera, but certainly the bruising does stick out a lot more on the blue wavelength. Okay, and here we've got infrared. Nothing much really happening there, but the camera does pick up a little bit of the infrared. And here we have UV, ultraviolet, which also does reveal the bruising. But I mean, compared to, say, the white light that we have here and the UV light, yeah, the UV light does show up a little bit better. But you do need another camera like I'm using now to actually see that, unless you're a bit closer. I'd say the blue light here just, yeah, really makes the bruising stand out, especially bruising that's slightly, you know, it's older, it's starting to heal up. And to the naked eye, you can't really see the discoloration, but under the blue light, definitely a lot more. Okay, so here's the Nextorch P56 just on the red mode, so 630 nanometers. And what I found, as you can see, it's really good at visualizing vein patterns. You can even see these smaller veins here, and these are barely visible if I don't have the red light on. And because red light is very close to the infrared range, it seems to give this sort of effect. Now, I do lower the intensity of the red light a little bit in order to get this effect with it. It's too intense. I find that it just turns everything, okay? But with a softer sort of red light on a lower mode, you can really visualize vein patterns easily. And like I mentioned before, vein patterns are very unique to each individual and can be used as evidence. So that's my right arm. Let me just show you my left arm. And yeah, you can see that there is, you know, a significant difference in the vein patterns of my left and my right arms. Like, squeeze my arm a bit. Maybe I can make these veins pop out a little bit more. It's kind of freaky. Look into my hands, see if we can see anything in my hands. You can see the veins sort of in my hands, but not really the ones that are underneath the skin, like these here that don't pop out. So these are actually underneath the skin, and they don't yeah, they look constricted compared to these ones up here, which are above, sort of protrude out from the skin. So yeah, red light penetrates beyond the outer layer of your skin. That's how it's able to get to those veins. Okay, so over here I have an example of identifying footprints. And I've just gone ahead and done a couple of these footprints here. And you can see the top one, it's kind of a little bit difficult to identify. I'm just using a normal tactical flashlight. And the beam profile you can see has a sort of concentrated hotspot in the center and then the spill at the side. I find that the concentrated hotspot just kind of blows out any imprints. Okay, and this is just carpet in my house. So basically it just starts to go back to normal pretty much as soon as you step off. But you can see here, compared to this, the beam of the P56, at the bottom, the P56 is a very even beam all the way through. So I find that those imprints just show out, just look a little bit more, it looks better because the light is more evenly dispersed. So the center of the beam, like in the top one, it's not just blowing out the entire center of the scene. So here's just another example. I've just done a couple of imprints again. And as you can see, like the bottom one just looks more even. And if you're going to take a photograph as well, it would just look better. can see all the negative imprints of the foot. Okay, all around to the edge. Was the top one, it kind of just leaves out the top because I don't have the beam shining up the top. It's more through the center and at the bottom, and actually eliminates some of the detail to the left of the footprint just due to the amount of light hitting that part of the foot. We do see the imprint on the right hand side of the foot, but the left hand side, you don't see it as much. Notice the one here at the bottom. And you might have sort of examples like this where you've got a tape measure right next to the imprint of the foot. Okay, so you can work out the size of the person's foot, and if they're wearing a shoe especially, what size shoe they're wearing, what pattern of imprint there is at the bottom. And I know that a lot of law enforcement agencies work with companies, and the companies share the data of their shoe designs, the imprints, so that if the police ever need to identify an imprint, they can identify the brand of the imprint, the year of manufacture, the particular stores that stock that shoe. So something cool that you can do as well is you can identify a lot of surface material using the white or the green light. For some reason, I just find the green light works quite well, just like the white light. I can't decide actually which one works better, but I do find for some reason with hair, it just seems to show up a little bit more easily under the green light, a bit more easy to identify than the white light. I don't know why exactly, but to me it just seems a little bit more easy to identify. Again, down the back with the white light and the green light, you know, another hair there, some surface material at the back, just dust and other debris. But yeah, because the hair actually casts a little bit of a shadow there, it just makes it quite easy to identify. If you're doing like a quick sweep or something like that, you're able to find them, rather than when you're just on top like this. I mean, look at that. You can barely see anything there. It's very difficult to see, even with the white light like this. It's almost invisible. But as soon as you shift the angle from this top down view to this side on view like that, you can see you can identify a lot of dirt and stuff like that. Okay, so I ran a bunch of ceiling bounce tests, and you can see here I'm only just using the white mode on high, so basically starts off at 100%, and you can see the light just begins to step down just around the 2-minute mark. So you get about 2 minutes of runtime on 95 to 100% before the light begins to slowly step down. And you can see by the 10-minute mark, about the 10-11 minute mark, the light is on about 30% output. Ran the same test on the low mode, the white low mode, and you can see here pretty much holds between 90 and 100% output for the duration of the test. I also ran a bunch of tests on my Opal Lightmaster Pro that you can see here now, and you can see basically with the white LED on high, that has the highest amount of throw, so 120 meters. Even on the low mode, 72 meters of throw, pretty respectable for a light with just a single set lens like that. You can see some of the throw specifications of all of the other modes, basically ranging from 6 meters all the way to 32 meters. Now the CRI on the white modes range from 68 to 77, so definitely on the lower end there. And you've got the CCT ranging from 6,381 all the way up to 8,548 on high. So that's definitely a very cool white on the high mode. The P56 produces a really large hotspot with minimal amounts of spill, and that's just due to this aspheric lens focusing all the light into what is usually a narrow beam, but Nextorch have basically just widened that beam a little bit more so that in a forensic setting, you're going to have a larger sort of hotspot and uniform distribution of light within that hotspot as well. So I thought I'd talk about a bunch of considerations that you might want to be aware of before purchasing this light. First one is that this is a very specialized flashlight, as you guys know. So it's not the best option if you just want a dedicated walking or general purpose light. The beam profile is pretty narrow and you can still use it as a general light or a walking light, but there's almost no spill. So for a lot of people, I think they'd prefer to have a light that just produces more spill. The beam overall looks like a spotlight, just larger in diameter. The second consideration is price. Now, this is not a cheap flashlight, but keep in mind that there are a few lights out there that compete with the P56 and has similar features. And I really like how easy it is to just change to those different colored beams. I do see a few other options out there, and they can just come with a white LED in there, and you have to attach and detach different colored filters. And I can just imagine that getting annoying. And if you're someone like me, you know, probably losing one of those when you're out as well. Third consideration is that this light does not have USB-C charging. So you've got to use that proprietary cable if you want to charge the battery inside. The light does connect to any kind of USB-A charger though. But always remember, you can charge the battery in a separate charger outside the light. That's what I do with most of my lights these days. And I really like that Nextorch also allow you to use other brands of 18650 batteries as well. So you can carry along a spare or two with you if you're worried of running out of juice. The third consideration is those goggles. And I really think they would be better if the lens were made of glass. They are made of plastic, so prone to scratching, but I have found them to be very helpful in order to eliminate those other wavelengths and visualize the resulting fluorescence. The last consideration is that there is no battery indicator on the P56. So yeah, do recommend you carry around a spare 18650, especially if you need to use the light more than 1 to 2 hours. Definitely a good option. So overall, the P56 is an excellent forensic light if for some reason you're in the market for one. And I really like the convenience, like I mentioned before, of just being able to change the colors so easily with one hand. You can even operate the light completely with one hand as well. Okay, once you turn it on, of course. The P56 produces a completely even beam, which is so important in a forensic light. And until recently, a lot of these LED forensic lights were considered to be unsuitable to be used in a forensic setting just because they don't produce an even beam. But that's definitely not the case with the P56. You'll be able to see that soon in the beam shots. The overall build quality is outstanding and it just feels like a professional tool comparing it especially to my other flashlights. So go ahead and check out the link in the description if you want to get the P56. You'll be able to get a special discount with my code. And if you have any questions about this light, just leave them down below in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you like the video as well, do me a big favor and click the like button. It just helps me to get my video out to more people. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest flashlight reviews and news, then make sure you subscribe. Nextorch P56. This is the white LED first. And surprisingly just like pretty bright. In the circle as well, pretty much just uniform, but on the edges of the circle there is a little bit of some slight aberration around the edges. The edge does have kind of like a brighter ring, but apart from that, the center of the beam is exactly uniform, which is what you want in a forensic light. You don't want any areas, especially in the center of the beam, to be brighter or than any other parts. That might emphasize areas a little bit too much. Some areas that you're pointing at use the green. Red. It's like having a really big floody spotlight. Produces pretty much no spill. Just projects the beam out. Blue. you can see, like, some of these plants here, they are reflecting back a slightly different color in areas that you just wouldn't see normally. I mean, lighter areas of the leaves and the grasses here as well, where some just absorb and appear actually more darker underneath the blue light, like this plant here in the center. Okay, infrared, can't really see that. UV, also can't see that, it's too far off. Back to white.